If you tell me where the ticket is, I will share the grand prize with you.
He says, what would a computer do with a lifetime supply of chocolate? I am now telling the computer exactly what he can do with a lifetime supply of chocolate.
I started talking for about 5-10 minutes, and then I realized the mic was off. Hi, welcome back. Welcome to Robin Reads It for Filth. I am Robin. I am your uncle. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. Today I'm very excited. I am going to be reviewing one of my favorite movies of all time, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. No, not that one.
Wow!
So many of you may know that the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is based on a book by a piece of shit. Roald Dahl. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally I would talk about how the movie does not stack up to the book. But this time I'm going to be talking about how happy I am that certain parts of the movie do not stack up to the book, and how it pissed off the racist anti-Semitic author, and how he renounced himself from it. And so that's one of the only reasons why I feel comfortable reviewing it here with you today. We're going to be putting on our makeup. I'm going to be trying to do a sort of purpley gold kind of Willy Wonka-esque vibe. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory follows a poor child named Charlie Bucket, and he wants so badly to know what's going on inside the chocolate factory that he passes every day on his way to and from school and work. They release 5 golden tickets, and if found, can go into the chocolate factory and see how the chocolate is made, and then leave with a lifetime supply of chocolate. So first off, the reason why they renamed the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is because they were trying to sell Wonka bars. It was a new chocolate that they had released for the film, but the preservatives inside that was supposed to keep it from melting for whatever reason didn't work, or maybe they didn't have any, but they all melted on the shelves, so they had to pull them all. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, it is time for my review of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So it starts with a bunch of striped children looking for candy. Candyman sings a song and gives free candy to all the children who can already afford candy. Oh my god, did he just smoke that girl in the face?
We did 20 ticks, and that was the best one.
So poor Charlie Bucket is watching on, being he has to go to work, he has to do responsibilities. No free candy for you, Charlie Bucket, you're too poor. So on his way home, he passes the closed Wonka factory that still has smoke coming out of it and is still lit up. He sees this man who talks about how nobody ever goes in and nobody ever comes out. But how do they make the chocolate? Who is helping him? We don't know. It turns out slaves. So we meet all of his family members, his mother, his grandparents, Georgina, George, Joe, and Josephine. Roald Dahl is really creative with names. And it turns out that in the movie, his dad is dead, which I guess makes sense as to why they are so poor. But in the book, he's not dead.
The kid is not dead!
Moving on. He pulls a loaf of bread out of his bag, and the mom says, "Where'd you get that?"
What difference does it make where he got it?
That's right, Grandpa Joe. Never mind where he got that. So this boy who has been making money on his paper route, rather than going off and buying candy, buys bread for the family and gives money to his grandfather so that he can keep chewing tobacco. I guess they're trying to show that he's such a sweet, selfless kid. But basically all I see is that this child has no childhood. So late that night, Charlie and Grandpa Joe are talking about Willy Wonka and why the doors have been closed. Now, in the book, Grandpa Joe used to work at the factory, from what I remember. But in here, he just kind of knows the lore. So he talks about, this has got some fallout. I'm going to take that off after. Willy Wonka was the most prolific candy maker in the world. But there were different rivals who would come and try to steal his ideas. And one of them, the most notable one, at least in the movie anyway, is named Slugworth. And so eventually, after being so frustrated and tired of his efforts kind of just being ruined, this will look better in a second, I promise. all of his efforts being sort of ruined and stolen, he decided to close his doors, kick out all of the people who were working for him, and everyone thought that was going to be that. But then, a couple of years later, suddenly the lights were turned back on, the candy was coming back out, and it was better than ever. But nobody knows who's helping him make it. So the next day, Charlie is asked to help his teacher with a science experiment, and the only reason why I bring it up is because it's one of the most British comedic scenes.
You don't know because only I know. If you knew and I didn't know, then you'd be teaching me instead of me teaching you. And for a student to teach his teacher, it's presumptuous and rude.
This scene and the subsequent one with the guy with the computer made me wonder whether or not this was a British movie. And in fact, it is a British-American movie, which is why some of it's very American and some of it's very British, and this scene is very British. This is why I do the eyes first, is because if there is fallout, and as much as I love Colourpop, they have a lot of fallout a lot of the time, you can then just clean up your under eye without ruining your eye makeup, which I am going to do right now. There are 5 golden tickets that Willy Wonka put out into the world, and whoever finds them will get a tour of the factory and will get a lifetime supply of chocolate. So the first child to find the golden ticket is a German child by the name of Augustus Gloop. Roald Dahl had a lot of opinions about children, and one of them was that he didn't like fat kids, which is clear from the way that this child is portrayed. Now, I know that it's an American movie, ergo, if he's fat, he's going to be punished for being fat. Fat phobia is always in vogue. For people who know fat folks, myself being one of them, they eat a lot less than everybody else because they are being told by everyone that the only way that they can get proper health care, respect, being taken seriously is if they are not seen eating a bunch of food in public. And this is like really actually not at all accurate. Skinny people love to rag on fat people, and I'm not down with that shit. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm going to be going for a halo eye. I probably should have put the white base underneath so that the purple would pop a little bit more. But I feel like this could end up looking nice regardless. Once again, as with all things in life, it looks better in person than on the monitor. But I have resolved myself to that eventuality, and it is what it is. So during the interview, we see a man with a scar on his face coming up to Augustus to talk to him about something. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm making like a kind of tornado shape with concealer, and we're going to fill it in later. So it's Charlie's birthday, and they get him a rock. Just kidding, they get him a scarf. They knitted him a scarf, which is, I guess, useful. I suppose, I don't know what time of year this is, but I suppose it might be like fall or winter. All right, these aren't, again, cousins, not sisters. It's fine because we're going to be playing around with the makeup after the fact. We're going to be doing like some shading. Actually doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too off. So it turns out that they also got him a chocolate bar, and when he opens it up, he won, but he didn't actually win. I'm going to do a second coat of this just to make sure that we have a nice base for the color we're putting on top. Now, if you wanted something that like you really wanted to pop, I would suggest using white concealer for this. But I think that beige is going to suit our purposes. And if not, you and I will learn this together. Again, I'm not practicing these looks beforehand. So the next lucky child is Veruca Salt. And Veruca, I learned very recently, means wart. I did not know that. So Veruca's dad owns a nut company, and he has all of these women shelling these chocolate bars instead of nuts. And they find it, and right as they bring the ticket to the child, this same bespectacled man comes up to Veruca and has a chat with her. We don't hear what he says. This child is incredibly spoiled, and it's so interesting to see how the parents are trying to explain away why they are giving the child whatever the child wants as opposed to disciplining her.
Happiness is what counts for children. Happiness and harmony.
Happiness and harmony is all well and good, but you are causing this child to grow up in a world where they think that no one can ever tell them no, and you are causing strife to everyone around that child. And also, when that child gets the rude awakening that that's not the case. Things don't just fall in your lap because you want them, Elon. I mean Veruca. I'm putting a powder base, yellow powder base, because we're going to go for like a gold. Oh, that's nice. I could be doing this with a brush, but I don't want to. Sometimes using your finger is just more accurate. Or, easier, because you've got it on you. It's attached to you. All right. I will use a brush for this part. So they start to show examples of what they call Wonka mania, and it's people going out and trying to find these tickets in the most funny and desperate of ways. This scene with the scientist freaking kills me. This scientist creates this robot that is supposed to help them find the final golden ticket, and it refuses to cheat. So the scientist tries to reason with it by saying, like, if you tell me where the ticket is, I will share the grand prize with you. And then the robot's like...
He says, what would a computer do with a lifetime supply of chocolate? I am now telling the computer exactly what he can do with a lifetime supply of chocolate.
So this is about as good as it's gonna look. I like the way it looks on the monitor, but it's also not perfect. So if you don't like it, then it's not gonna get any better. So the third person finds the golden ticket, and it is a gum-chewing American by the name of Violet Beauregard. In the book, it's her mother and not her father. Moving on. I just developed a new, either a sty or a pimple on my lid. And so I either now have to learn to paint around it, or I'll have to wait for it to go away for me to go back to normal. So I'm making my eyeliner a lot thicker, but it's not exactly like we're going for something subtle here. Father is a used car salesman. He's got a very bourgeois vibe to him. And once again, we see this bespectacled man with a scar go up to her and whisper something to her. So the reason why Violet won is because she is a expert gum chewer, competition gum chewer, and she decided to switch to candy, which I don't understand, because if she's a competition gum chewer, like, the whole thing is that she only chews gum, like, the one piece. So I don't see why that would mean that she was buying multiple pieces, but they have to come up with an excuse or a reason as to why she won the ticket over somebody else. I don't even know why they have to bother doing this. She won the ticket, right? Concealer makes everything better. So Charlie's starting to get really bummed out because he is a little boy who has hopes and dreams, and this is like the closest thing he's ever come to achieving them. It's like he's always right there. He's always right on the precipice, but he never really gets it. Like, he lives so close to the factory, but he's never gotten to go inside. And this is the kind of thing that, he's under the impression that anyone could win, which is essentially true. Some people have more likelihood of winning, because they have more resources, or they more habit of purchasing these things. But essentially, it could happen to anybody. So as the tickets start to get found, he gets more and more bummed out, which I get, Every time I see someone win the lottery, I go, why not me? So, every time he sees someone else win, he's like, well, why not me? Why is this happening to other people? And so his mom sings the most forgettable song in the movie. So for the face, I'm going to be using the Maybelline Fit Me. I really do like it. The Hydrate and Smooth is so much nicer than the other. My face tends to be, you know, lighter than this, but I think I can make it work. I made it work last time, so worst comes to worst, we'll blend it with the other one, because the other one, the 105, is the color. This one is like such a beautiful color, and it does match, kind of. So we'll see. I don't want it to go too dark. It's because I really like the Hydrate and Smooth finish. As I mentioned, it's like a nice sort of dewy finish, and I much prefer dewy to like chalky. And it's like, oh yeah, well if you're really pale, then you're doomed to look chalky. And it's like, cool, thanks. It's like, I already know how doomed I am to look chalky. I have had this complexion my whole life. I'm aware of it. Ticket number 4 is found, and it is found by a charming young man by the name of Mike TV. Again, very subtle, these character names.
The country wants to hear from you. The world is waiting, Mike.
Can't you shut up? I'm busy.
So he's giving his interview and he won't even look up from the television. They don't explain as to why he won over somebody else, which makes me think that they didn't really need to provide that for Violet. This is me being nitpicky, I guess. We see once again this unnamed, bespectacled man is coming and talking to him. There's only one left, and people are starting to get really crazy. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's a little much, but again, we're not going for subtle. We've got this sort of like narrator slash newscaster character that comes in every once in a while, and he reminds us that even though there's only one ticket left, we need to remember the important things in life.
Offhand, I can't think of what they are, but I'm sure there must be something.
That night, Grandpa shows that he hasn't actually been using the money that Charlie gave him for tobacco. He's been using it for chocolate. Who went out and bought this for him? Because he's bedridden, yes? So who went out and actually got this? Was it the mom? And if it was the mom, why is the mom so like ignored in this? And so they open the chocolate and there's nothing inside. And then Charlie gives us the iconic line of the movie.
I bet those golden tickets make the chocolate taste terrible.
So we're now seeing how desperate people are to get their hands on chocolate bars. We see that in the UK, they're having an auction for the last box of Wonka bars, and they're going for like thousands of pounds. You know, when I start out these looks and I get like halfway through, I look at myself and I go, I'm not really sure if this looks nice. But then as I go on, either I am really starting to get used to the way that my face looks, or I actually am starting to like what I'm doing. I'm not sure. Hard to tell. Hard to tell. So there's also this really funny bit with a woman who her husband is kidnapped. That's not the funny part. Her husband is kidnapped, and the kidnappers say that they want her last case of Wonka bars, and her response just kills me.
They want your case of Wonka bars.
And then comes in the news that the final ticket has been found in Paraguay by a multimillionaire.
Pontiac Astro Wagon goes to see Montgomery Burns.
Yay! Charlie hears the news, and he is absolutely crushed. So the next day, after a particularly annoying day at school, he's on his way home and he finds a silver dollar. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to go buy some candy. He buys a Scrumdiddlyumptious bar because it's the biggest one, and I wonder if it's because like it needs to be super long in order for the name of the bar to be written on it. He just houses the Scrumdiddlyumptious bar and decides to buy a regular Wonka bar for later. So as he's on his way home, he sees a lot of people reading the news, and it turns out that the guy from Paraguay did not actually find the last golden ticket. He had forged it. And so Charlie, with hope in his heart, opens the chocolate bar. And lo and behold, there is the golden ticket. You know, you were so concerned about the golden ticket making the chocolate taste bad. You just dropped this in the street. How does that make the chocolate taste? Oh, I gotta do my eyebrows. I always forget to do my freaking eyebrows. So someone discovers that Charlie has a golden ticket, and they want to see it and they grab at it, but none of them actually steal it out of his hands, which is nice of them. You know, I feel like nowadays someone would just steal it and run off with it. So his boss tells him to run straight home. On his way home, he gets accosted by the man with the glasses, who tells him his name's Slugworth and that he'll pay him very handsomely for an everlasting gobstopper. And he shows his family that he has actually won the last golden ticket. And Grandpa Joe gets up in an ableist show that all people who are disabled are faking, or they just need enough motivation to want to actually get out of bed. Ooh, geez. I look like a cartoon villain. Well, if I'm supposed to be Willy Wonka, he's kind of a cartoonish character. You know what? I'm going to keep it. I kind of like it. So Grandpa sings a song, and they decide to invite him to the factory and not Charlie's mom, who has been the most, like, supportive and caring and works the hardest. No, we're going to take the other man in the house, of course. They read the ticket, and it turns out that they have to be at the factory in the morning. It's a good thing that they live in town, because otherwise, A, they wouldn't have had enough time to get there, and B, they can't afford airfare. How are my eyebrows so uneven? Is it just that my eyebrows are uneven? I think one is like a little bit more arched than the other. So every time I try to do this, one of them ends up being like, wah, wah. They all show up the next day to meet the infamous Willy Wonka and get a tour of his infamous factory. And yet another ableist moment happens here where everyone is so excited to see this man, but they are disappointed and horrified to see that he walks with a limp. Grandpa Joe was bedridden until yesterday, and he's got a cane, so what's the fucking problem? So everyone stops cheering until he falls into a somersault and shows that, he's actually not disabled, so we can all be happy again. Apparently this was Gene Wilder's idea, the guy who plays Willy Wonka. He said to the director, I want the kids to know right off the bat that they cannot trust me. And I, Robin, fucking love that. So everyone introduces themselves to Wonka. And so Veruca goes first. And I can't help but think that the way that Gene Wilder is pronouncing her name is because he's Jewish and he calls her Barucha, like Barucha.
My dear Veruca, what a pleasure.
So the first thing that they have to do when they enter the factory is read a long contract, which starts out being really funny, but then I kind of read the rest until it gets like super small. And it's more or less a SAG union contract. Everyone signs the paper and you should read what you're signing. Read what you're signing. Read what you're signing. I wonder though, because they're all kids, if they sign it without their guardian signing it, is that legally binding? Because they're minors. I do like to do a neutral lip when I have really crazy eyes. It shows that I'm not completely off the rails. Enter the chocolate room. And one of my favorite parts about the chocolate room, not just the fact that everything inside is edible, but the fact that the door has a musical lock, which I find so cool. So they go inside. There are giant gummy bears. There is a chocolate river. There are mushrooms that have whipped cream in them. Buttercups that have presumably butter or some kind of tea in them. Wow, I almost look presentable. All dressed up and no place to go. And we see the slaves. I mean the Oompa Loompas. They are slaves, okay? They are working for him. We don't know if they're getting paid. They definitely can't leave. In the original, wanted to make them look like African pygmies, but the editors thought that that wasn't going to go over well, which, gee, I wonder why. While we're on the subject of Roald Dahl, let's talk about World War II. Family of actors in Romania called the Ovitz family, and they were all little people. They had formed a troupe called the Lilliput troupe, and so those of them who were taller would do all of the stage handling stuff, and those of them who were smaller would do the acting and performing on stage in the 1930s and the 1940s. In 1944, they were deported to Auschwitz. They caught the attention of Joseph Mengele, who was known as the Angel of Death. He was the camp doctor at Auschwitz, but he was so fascinated by them that they put them in better quarters. They wanted to keep them healthier so that he could perform experiments on them because he was fascinated by little people. The entire family survived when the camp was liberated in 1945. We see Augustus sticking his full-on hands and face in the chocolate river, and then he falls in. Mrs. Gloop says, "Do something."
Help. Police. Murder.
He gets sucked up into the pipe and pulled into the fudge room, so they bring off Mrs. Gloop to go retrieve him, hopefully before he gets turned into fudge. And the Oompa Loompas have songs throughout this movie, starting with Augustus Gloop, but they are in no way based on the lyrics from the book, so that makes it A-okay in my book. Yes, I also made these earrings. Check it out down below. So the next step of the tour is Wonkatania, which is a boat. So they take this boat, and it is pretty iconic in terms of scenes. So they go into this weird, creepy tunnel, and Wonka is singing this song that seems just like kind of out of nowhere, but it actually is from the book. Moving on. The actors knew more or less what the words of the scene were going to be, but they had no idea what the director had in mind for this scene, so their fear is genuine. This is something you might find in like A Clockwork Orange. And as quickly as it began, it stops. And they have reached the next part of their journey, which is the inventing room. They go inside and they see a bunch of different inventions, some of which being serious and some of which being silly. The most notable part of this room is the Everlasting Gobstopper. Now, the Everlasting Gobstopper, according to Wonka, is a product that you can eat and eat and eat and eat and suck on, and it won't get any smaller, which is very useful for people who don't have a lot of pocket money. If anything, it is going to put them out of business rather than make them more popular. Is this one? Yeah, okay. So he gives each of them one, and they promise to never give it to anybody else, but Veruca Salt is shown to cross her fingers behind her back, which we all know what that means. Next up is the 3-course gum. Basically, it is a gum that if you eat it, it will simulate a 3-course meal. And without even listening to what Wonka says, in that it is not finished, Violet comes up and pops it in her mouth. And at first it starts out fine. You know, she's eaten her 3-course dinner. First course is soup course. Next course is the main course. And then comes the dessert, where she's having blueberry pie. And then she turns into a blueberry. The Oompa Loompas bring her to the juicing room to be juiced. 3 children left. So they get to the wallpaper, which is flavored wallpaper for nurseries, because apparently each fruit tastes like the fruit that it looks like. The plums taste like plums. The bananas taste like bananas. The snozberries taste like snozberries.
Who ever heard of a snozberry?
He brings them into the fizzy lifting drink room, which is basically a room with a lot of bubbles, where he talks about the soda that makes you fly. But it's not ready yet, so don't try it. Hear that, Grandpa Joe? It's not ready yet. Don't try it. But of course, he makes Charlie wait behind, and they both try it, and they start to fly. And they're having a really good, fun time until it starts to dawn on them that they don't know how to get back down. And they keep going closer and closer to the ceiling fan that threatens to chop them up. They are able to quickly figure out that if they burp, they can find their way back down to the ground. They run back to the group, hoping that no one noticed they were gone. Spoiler alert, they did. So in this room are the golden geese, and they lay the eggs, and the eggs go down onto the scale, and the scale determines whether the egg is a good egg or a bad egg. The good eggs go off to be processed, and the bad eggs go to the furnace. Veruca tells her dad that she wants one of the golden geese, and Wonka says, "No, you can't have it." So we have a musical number. The only child who gets the musical number is Veruca, and they filmed this scene 39 times. Go back and watch this scene and think to yourself how much setup they had to do before each of those 39 takes. So she jumps on the scale to make her final high note, and she falls into the furnace. And her dad runs and jumps in there with her. All right, so then we have the scene that makes me personally uncomfortable just because I know what happened behind the scenes. So they get into this thing called the Wonka-mobile, and they pour in like a bunch of soda and, I don't know, alcohol and stuff. And it makes these big bubbles that is supposed to like propel them forwards. But the actual chemical that they used inside the machine was the foam from fire extinguishers, which is a serious skin irritant, not to mention what happens if it gets in your eyes. So all of the cast had to go and get treated for several days for chemical burns. So that's fun. This part was also, I don't believe, in the book. Moving on. We then get into this scene. It's like the TV room. They describe the way that you put television, like the way that you transport images from one place to another, is how it breaks the thing up into pieces and it goes into the air and then gets transported to the television. I mean, I guess if you're talking about like radio waves, that's kind of true, but what we're actually talking about here is teleportation, because he basically takes a giant chocolate bar and teleports it into a tiny little television. It gets reduced in size on the transport. So what does my TV do? He stands on the platform and they shoot him with the beam and he gets transported over the TV, but he's like this tall. They bring him over to the taffy pulling department because, you know, young boys are quite spry and you should be able to like just stretch him back out. It turns out that Charlie's the last one, and he turns to Wonka and he says, "Are the other kids going to be okay?" Because it's like super sweet that he wants to know. And Willy Wonka is like, "Yep, they're going to leave their same terrible selves." And that's the end of the tour. See ya. And so he closes the door, and Grandpa Joe and Charlie are really confused because he didn't get any of his chocolate. So they go into his office, and I want to talk about the design for this office. This office was designed exactly the way that it is, except nothing was cut in half, but they wanted it to look even more eccentric. So they just cut every single piece of what the set designers had made in half to make it look that much more unhinged. Grandpa Joe is like, "Well, why? Okay, we need to get the chocolate." And he says, "Well, you signed saying that you would not transgress any of the rules that I set out, and you drank the fizzy lifting drink," which is true. Grandpa Joe and Charlie did the same thing that all the other children did. They did not listen to the rules. They were actually able to find their way out, but they did essentially do what all the other kids did. But this part is not in the book. So the actor playing Charlie did not know that Gene Wilder was going to yell his lines. So the reaction that he has to Gene Wilder yelling is genuine. This director is a sociopath, like, honestly. So Grandpa Joe is like, "We're going to take the everlasting gobstopper and sell it to Slugworth." Instead, Charlie gives Willy Wonka his everlasting gobstopper and they start walking away. And Willy Wonka says, "You did it. This was a test. That was not Slugworth. He is a man who works for me." I gotta say, how does he get in and out of the factory if he works for you? Is he allowed to go home? Is he also a slave like the Oompa Loompas? How did this happen? Explain this to me. This part is not in the book, so they didn't really explain that away. He says, "You've won." What does it mean, you've won? Well, get into the glass elevator with me. They get into the glass elevator, they push the up and out button, and they crash up through the ceiling. As they're looking over the town, Willy Wonka says, "You've won my factory. I want you to run my factory. I wanted a child to run it. I don't want adults to run it the way that they run it. I want the children to run it the way that I run it." Presumably that means that he wants them to run it like in a whimsical way versus "you're going to do whatever I tell you." In the book originally, Charlie says, "No, we're not going to do that because, I still want to live with my family." And he's like, "Well, they can come with us." They're not going to come with us. They live in a bed. They're bedridden. And so they crash through the ceiling of the house and just drag them into the elevator in the bed while they're all screaming in protest. That does not happen here, which I think is a better tableau for the ending. But essentially that's it. Charlie Bucket was a good kid, good of heart. He did everything, you know, with love in his heart, and he ended up getting rewarded for that. And this is one more thing that I say, you got to do things with love and not for love. So I love this movie. I adore this movie. I will watch this movie every day, any day. Make sure you have enough snacks that'll take you to the halfway point, because most of the chocolate and most of the candy parts are at the like halfway point and not before. So if you're sitting there, you're eating all your chocolate like in anticipation of seeing the chocolate factory, and then you get to the halfway mark and you're like, oh, all my chocolate's gone and we're about to enter the chocolate room. I've made a horrible mistake. Tell me how you liked this video. I recently lost my pet of 17 years and I've been like super bummed out about it. So if you could tell me some stories about your pets in the comments, I would really appreciate it. It would help make me feel a little better, and let me know what you think about this look. All of the products that I used are going to be in the description box below. If you want to take a look at my handmade jewelry, it is also going to be in the description box. And in the meantime, thank you so much for helping me grow this channel. I love you all, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, be queer, read books. You're gonna keep hearing Pepper. She is crying at the door, but she has her daddy out there, so she can go and visit him. I had a very specific color in mind when I did this, and then I woke up and saw it was missing. So we're gonna make do. We're gonna make do with what we have. Am I recording right now? I fucking hope so. Yes. Oh shit. It's just, as I mentioned, it's a little bit darker, and my face... Fuck. Damn. Shit. Bitch. Ass. A real AI thing, then I would like welcome it with open arms, because it would be a new creature, a new life form. What happened here? How did I fuck this up so bad? To a three-stringed quartet. Yes. So in this room are